All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. Let's go ahead and get started. Today we'll be talking about the top 5 must-haves of a BDR solution, and we're going to touch on ransomware as well, so how to survive any disaster, even ransomware. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please make sure to use the question tool to do that. And thank you guys for those of you who are on the line a few minutes early to confirm that the audio and the visual was working properly. So now on the screen, you should be seeing my contact info. Please let me know in the question tool if you're not seeing my contact info. And if you want to reach out to me at any point, happy to speak with you. You've got my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And then a couple of quick housekeeping announcements as well. So we are recording today, and I will be posting a copy of this recording at infrascale.com/webinars. Usually get that up within 24 to 48 hours. The slides are going to be available in the handout section in just a few minutes. Right now, we've got loading in there the 2016 Disaster Recovery Attitudes and Adoption Report. We also have the Ransomware Survival Guide. So while those are uploading, as soon as those are done, I'll be able to upload a copy of the slides as well. And then we'd love for you to join the conversation. You can follow us on Twitter, you can find us on Facebook or LinkedIn. We'd love to chat with you. And then again, any questions or comments throughout the presentation, just use that question tool within the software to let me know. We are, of course, going to come to the Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if you do have comments, happy to hear from you throughout the presentation. All right, let's take a look at the agenda. So you should have the agenda on your screen here now. Again, if you're not seeing that come through, just use the question tool and let me know and give me a heads up. So today what we're going to look at is first the key trends in BDR in 2016. We're also going to look at some ransomware trends since it's been such a big issue lately. We are going to touch on that. Then we are going to look at the top 5 BDR must-haves. Then we'll talk about how to avoid ransomware, and then the Q&A at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. So here we're just taking a look at the reality today. Every company relies on data and systems uptime for survival. And this is really because globalization's created such a highly competitive market for businesses. And because it's so competitive, any business really can't afford to lose out on opportunities, lose out on customers, sales. It's just not an option. So if any unplanned outage occurs, a natural disaster, those floods, tornadoes, or just outages due to human error, no organization can afford that. So really, the systems need to be up and running at all times. And implementing a proper business continuity and disaster recovery plan is simply a must for every organization because it's so crucial for a business. And what do you have at risk otherwise? So here is a look at the cost per hour of downtime. And this information can also be found in one of the handouts there too, so there's a lot more info in there. So these are the calculated averages of the cost per hour of downtime. A small business, on average, lost over $8,000 per hour. Large organizations reported losses of over $600,000 per hour, and then right in the middle, the average there was $215,000 per hour. So these are just astronomical figures for a business. Consider what happens when your systems go down, even for an hour. You lose all communication with your partners, your customers, employees. How would you deal with a situation like this? And then more importantly, do you know how much an unplanned outage would cost you in terms of lost opportunities? If you guys have comments on this, I'd love to hear it in that questions tool. You can type in some comments there as well. It would be really interesting to see and hear the cost per hour for all of you guys who are here today. So I'd love to hear from you. All right, so if we realize how expensive this is, how costly it is, and how detrimental it is to business, then why hasn't everyone adopted a proper BDR solution? Well, here are some of the barriers to adoption. This is in the 2016 DRAS Attitudes and Adoption Report, so you have access to this in the handouts. Now, if you know that you can't afford to shut down your business even for a day, and you need to ensure that you have a proper business continuity and disaster recovery plan, then these are some of those barriers for adoption that we've been seeing. Now, the high majority just simply said it's too expensive. I can't afford that. So 36% have not adopted a proper BDR solution because of the misperceived cost. So we are going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes here. Now, after that, insufficient IT resources and compatibility issues were the next highest barriers to adopting a proper solution. And I think that we also need to take a look at traditional BDR trade-offs when we are considering those barriers to BDR adoption. Now, just how expensive is it? And let's take a look at that. It really sort of depends on historical disaster recovery trade-offs. It essentially means that you're looking at cost. Along the bottom here, we've got the lowest cost up to the highest, and then recovery time, or RTO. So recovery time objective from days, which we know is just too long, to seconds. All right, so first you have, of course, offsite tape backup. Now this is very cheap, we know that, but it takes days to recover. And really anywhere along this continuum you have those trade-offs. So cloud backup, it is slightly more expensive, but you have that faster recovery time objective. Appliance backup, and then cold, warm, and hot site DR. I mean, hot site DR, of course, you have that immediate replication, but it's so expensive. So anywhere along this continuum, you have to make that trade-off between speed and cost. But what you really want is to be right here, the lowest cost with the fastest recovery time. And that's where DR as a service comes in, DRAS, Disaster Recovery as a Service, because it lets you quickly reboot and virtualize VMs. It keeps your users productive while you fix the root cause of the outage. So what we found is only the biggest companies can currently afford to fail over their systems, and it's leaving 68% of companies using mere backup as a disaster recovery solution. So we want to be able to, easily and affordably get you a solution that's going to put you right here in this top left corner, the lowest cost to you and the fastest recovery time available. And we're going to, of course, talk about how you can do that. So when we are trying to understand backup and disaster recovery, it comes to downtime as well. So we're seeing here how pervasive downtime really is, and then we're also seeing the top causes of downtime. So two different stories on this slide here. On the left, we're looking at 91% of data center managers that were surveyed experienced downtime in the last 2 years. And then 47% experienced an outage this year. That's essentially, just about half. And on the right, you see the top causes of downtime. Not surprising, right? We know that hardware failure and human error together account for the majority of downtime. It actually accounts for over 3/4 of all downtime. And these are more the micro disasters. But then you also have the macro disasters. The natural disasters, they account for just less than 5% of the total. So in looking at disaster recovery, we want to make sure that with BDR, we're talking about both these micro and macro situations. We really need a proper solution for any type of outage. And that's going to include ransomware too. So let's take a look at a few ransomware trends and stats. as well. We've all been hearing these stories in the news, and maybe you've even had a ransomware attack yourself, and you've seen one of those ransom screens pop up demanding that you pay to get your files back. So these trends are really interesting, really good sources of data here too. Almost 3,000 new malware modifications were reported in the first quarter of 2016. And then, of course, you know, if you get one of those demands, paying it is going to involve e-currency or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. And once the hackers verify that payment, then they start that long process of decrypting your files. So they'll provide a decryptor software. And what we saw with that is the fastest response times until you're actually back up and running can take 2 to 5 days. So that's why nearly 3/4 of ransomware victims, or 72% here, were unable to access their data for 2 days. So they have to provide that decryptor software, and of course, you hope that they do provide it and not just charge you a second ransom. And then it starts that process of decrypting all the files. And then on top of all that, we know that they're getting away with it because of the amount of money paid in ransom. So take a look at the amount that's been paid. Just the first 3 months of 2016, over $200 million has been paid in ransom. Now compare that with all of 2015 together. So all of last year, $25 million was paid in ransom. Now that's still an incredibly high figure, but simply that comparison, look at the first 3 months of 2016, that's already shot up, it's grown exponentially to over 200 million. So this is really a serious issue that we do need to address, and that's why we added it into today's webinar. 34% of SMBs fell prey to phishing emails in 2015. And that's really how the ransomware gets in. It's activated by an end user. That user, one person, lets it in, and then it starts modifying all the files on their system, and then it can spread throughout the network. It really has a big network effect until a triggered message comes up. Let's take a look at what those messages look like next. So here's a few examples of those triggered ransomware demands. Now, again, it's modifying all the files on your system kind of in the background. It's working silently and slowly in the background. And then you get one of these messages, or one of your employees gets one of these messages for a ransom demand. So it used to start in maybe the $300 to $500 range, because ransomware was only targeting individuals. It was really just targeting one individual's files and folders. But fast forward to 2016, and now, like I just mentioned, it has that network effect. Companies now are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. Now, this is really important because it goes back to that cost per hour of downtime that we started with. Would that downtime be costlier or more disastrous than paying the ransom? And how long would it take you to restore your systems to pre-infection? So lots of things to consider here. And right now, most of us think there's just two options if you get infected. Most people are looking at either, pay the ransom or roll back to a previous date, a clean backup from before the ransomware. Now, if you don't have access to a recent backup, you likely may have no choice but to pay the ransom. But that takes time. We just saw how it could take 2 to 5 days. So I'd like to do a really quick poll, and I want to hear from you guys. Let me launch this quick poll here. So simply asking, when it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? A, yes, I've been a victim of ransomware. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. Or C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. So I'll give everyone a minute here to reach forward and vote. So far, we're at 50-50 with A and B, which is really interesting. Now, also what's interesting with ransomware is that oftentimes the ransom increases as the hours pass if you don't pay that ransom. So in looking at how it's changed over time, this is a really important consideration as well. You know, what do you do if you were to be infected by ransomware today, for example? How would you treat that and how would you react to it? All right, we've got 60% of you have voted so far. Okay, great. And now we're at 80%. So we do have the majority here of you have participated. So thank you for your participation. Let me go ahead and share these results. So really interesting data here from you guys joining us today. So yes, I have been a victim of ransomware. That was choice A. 33% of you, a third of you, have answered A. Now I'd love to hear about that. You can use the question tool. Did you pay the ransom? Did you roll back from a previous date? Let us know. We'd love to share that with everyone. B, no, I haven't experienced this type of security breach. That we're at 67% of you with that. And then 0%, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware, which is great to hear. And of course, you guys are here today to hear about a proper BDR solution. So of course, it's good to see that's almost a trick question, right? So let me go ahead and close this poll down. So our mission at InfraScale, we're a disaster recovery as a service company, and we're using the cloud to eradicate downtime and data loss. Really simple mission. And hopefully you're here because that's your mission too. So I, included you in this too. Now, obviously, we can't eliminate the causes of downtime. We took a look at the causes of downtime, and a lot of it is hardware failure and human error. That's the high majority, and we can't eliminate that. But what we do aim to do is eliminate the pain that a business experiences in the event of an outage. So what we've found is that on-demand failover is really outside the reach of most businesses. It's just leaving businesses ill-equipped to respond to outages, but we're going to take a look at that in just a moment here. What we were talking about right before this in that poll was we were taking a look at who has been infected with ransomware and who has not. Now, I did ask if any of you would like to share that story. There were 33% of you who said, yes, I've been affected by ransomware. So if you'd like to share that story, use the question tool and we'd love to hear it. Now, one of the options that I just mentioned is roll back from a previous backup, right? So here are a couple of screenshots from my backup and disaster recovery account with InfraScale. And you can see here all of the folders on my desktop. Here in this case, this is an example to really show that by default, InfraScale keeps everything. In my recovery here, was selecting a date back in May of 2011, which of course I'm not really going to roll back to 2011. There's no need for me to go back that far. But it's important to note that InfraScale keeps everything by default forever. That is really, really important, that forever archiving. It's critical because most BDR systems out there age content out after a few weeks, maybe a month. But we just saw how ransomware actually works, and it takes months to get into your systems discreetly. So you don't just want any old backup system in place. You really need a backup system with forever archiving built into it, right? And then, of course, my InfraScale account isn't just the backup and recovery software on my machine, but this is a snapshot of my dashboard. So my dashboard is a unified management console, doesn't require VPN access. I can log into it from my smartphone. I can grab my iPad or any laptop and simply log in from any browser. And here I can view activity alerts. I can access reporting, monitoring. I can monitor account usage here. I can manage retention settings, control remote deployments. So it's a really powerful tool right at my fingertips. And this is one screenshot here from the dashboard that I want to focus on for just a minute, are account level details. So this account level details, you can see these radio buttons here. You can take a look at the last 24 hours, the last 30 days. You can see a whole calendar view. Essentially, we're getting these details of which machines have the most changes, because when ransomware is going through your system, it's modifying all the files that it touches. So if we're backing it up, it's going to be recognized as a changed file. So what we did is we took these analytics and we created a brand new monitoring alert, and it's an alert called anomaly detection. So if you have a really large number of newly modified files, then you want to know what type of event happened and what's touching all that data. So let's take a quick look at anomaly detection in action. And again, if you see this alert, you really know at that point that you need to investigate it, see what could be happening, consider it might be ransomware. Essentially, an average backup of changed files is going to continue like normal, but an unusually large backup is going to trigger one of these anomaly alerts. So here is a quick 1-minute video here of anomaly detection in action. So to configure the anomaly settings, we go up to settings in our dashboard and click monitoring. And then in the monitoring page, we see the enable anomaly detection setting. And then here we let you set the threshold as well. So that's when the warning's released, when that threshold's passed. And this is how it works. So we're calculating a rolling average number of modified files for each device. And then if the modified file count for a backup passes that predetermined threshold, then we'll release the warning. Then you can even open the details and see things like, yep, here we go. So opening the details here. Yep, all right, great. So hopefully you guys still have that. Is that video still playing? Okay, great. Yep, so when you open up the details, you see things like backup duration, total files processed, how many files were modified, and then you can download the logs if you just select the Manage Action, and then you can investigate at a file level too. So what we've seen, users generally have about 5 to 10 modified files per day because so much work is done online. So anything that's 3 to 4 times that is going to be cause for investigation. So then you'll want to look into that. So any questions on that anomaly detection? Great. All right, so that anomaly detection is it's a brand new alert system that we put in place, which is really, really important because no other BDR solutions out there have this type of proactive alerting. Right now, if someone gets infected, they're really just quickly scrambling, trying to pay the ransom or roll back to a previous state. But this proactive alerting is really critical. And then on top of that, here's where DRAS comes in, Disaster Recovery as a Service, like I mentioned early on. And that lets you quickly fail over your systems, and it supports DR to be on demand. So here's Disaster Recovery on Demand. This is a scenario where, in this situation, here are some end users just working like normal, and unknown to them, they're about to experience an outage, a ransomware attack, maybe any type of unforeseen disaster. And with on-demand failover, you can simply log in from any browser, just like I mentioned, a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone, and you can roll back to a previous date and instantly recover a clean version of the entire environment, so not just the files and folders. And that way, everyone keeps working. Now, this whole process happens in 15 minutes or less, guaranteed. It usually takes just a few seconds, about 60 seconds. But here's a more detailed way to look at it. So on the left, you see really the traditional backup flow, where you have your production box and the backup server next to it. It's then copying data to some storage, could be a tape drive, could be an on-prem disk, the cloud, and then it's just copying data back. So if a disaster happens, then, or ransomware, like we just looked at, you need to copy that data back out of storage, and then you have to reconfigure, and this all takes time. Now, with DRaaS, it's very, very different. We don't want to copy everything twice, moving data back and forth. We simply want to spin up a working environment where the data is. And we can virtualize and create up to 200 machines on the fly and reconstruct your entire data center infrastructure where your data is sitting. And that's how we deliver that 15-minute failover guarantee. And this is really, really important because especially how ransomware has been evolving and the types of outages that we're seeing these days, the primary issue really used to be individual data loss. But now the threat is really not just data loss, but also business interruption and downtime. And so that's why I showed our mission a moment ago is really to eradicate downtime and data loss. We focus on business continuity. And what we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is that backup and recovery is going to disappear. It's really going to be replaced by on-demand failover and by DRaaS solutions. So while, of course, we have a backup and recovery solution, what you really should be looking at moving forward is a failover solution. Any questions on that? Because I have another quick poll for you guys. I don't see any questions coming through on that right now, so I'm going to launch this second poll. And this is simply asking, when it comes to BDR, which of these is you? A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. Or we threw in C there as well. I just still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware or downtime. So I'll give everyone a minute to answer there. We've got about 25% of you have voted so far. Great, we've got 50% of you have voted so far. I'll leave this up for another minute here and give everybody a chance to participate. All right, so we have a 50-50 tie right now between A and B. So we've got the majority of you guys have voted, but last chance to vote here and break that tie between A and B. All right, so I'll close this down and share the results here. We've got 50% say A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup within 15 minutes. Curious, use the question tool and let me know, can you confidently roll back within 1 minute? And then 50% also said, B, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery, but can't afford it. So really interesting info here. Let me go ahead and close this poll down. We are going to, of course, talk about that in a moment here. That was the top barrier to adoption of the BDR solution, is the misperceived cost. So we are going to come to that in just 1 minute here. Okay, so we're going to dive into the top 5 must-haves of a BDR solution. So this is really the topic, big topic for today's presentation. Now, first is avoiding reserved infrastructure, and here is why. So we saw a moment ago the trade-offs, right? That some solutions can achieve the recovery time that we want, but they just don't achieve the cost that we want. So here on the left, you see how most DR solutions are architected. So you have the production site, it replicates to the failover site, and then because of the bandwidth, the people, the software involved, that can really cost up to 3 times as much to set up a proper DR solution. And on top of the expense to implement it, it's complex to test and to use, it's vulnerable to hackers, it doesn't have security built right in. So avoid reserved infrastructure and still get on-demand failover, but at the price point of most backup solutions. That's what InfraScale can actually deliver. Now, number 2 is to avoid hardware-heavy solutions. And this is going to sound familiar to some of you. So take a look at the scenario on the left. So in this situation, more space equals more appliance. So you buy an appliance, you end up filling it up as your data grows, and so then you buy another one, and then fill that up, buy another one, fill it up again. Really continue this cycle where more space is more appliance, but that's expensive, really, really expensive. So take a look at the new way on the right, where you have the last hardware appliance that you'd ever need, just a slim rack mount unit that you could send 1 terabyte or 100 terabytes. Well, we do that by utilizing cloud spillover technology. So we're intelligently spilling data over from the device to the cloud. It's all based on policies that you set. So it takes a look at the age of the data, the value of the data, and this is really a much more cost-effective solution, of course. Okay, taking a look at number 3, design it end-to-end. So you really need to have complete coverage. It's increasingly vital to protect all of your data, the applications, the devices. You really do need a solution that's end-to-end that can back up any device, that can support any operating system, and not just Windows, but Linux, Unix, VMware, Hyper-V, deploy in any form, physical appliances, virtual appliances, agent-level backups, store in any cloud, so the vendor's cloud, your own private cloud, third-party clouds as well. You want to recover anything. You want to recover anything from an entire database server down to mailbox level. And you want to be able to boot anywhere. Lastly, fail back, of course. So you want to fail over and be able to fail back. And with InfraScale especially, we let you protect all of your data, from mobile devices to desktops to laptops, both physical and virtual servers. And we support over 100 versions of operating systems as well. Now, the 4th must-have is really prioritize recovery and testing. So here's another way to think about it, the old way and the new way, right? So think about what you'd normally do at 2 a.m. on a Saturday in case of an outage. You'd have to get up out of bed, get to your car, drive to the data center, start recovering from backups. But imagine the scenario, same issue at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, but you can just grab your iPad off the nightstand and bring back all the servers in the right order within 15 minutes guaranteed. And like I mentioned, most of the time it just takes a few seconds. It could take 1 to 2 minutes, just depends on the type of data and the amount of data. Now, With testing as well, another thing to look at, it used to be such a hassle that you'd only do it once a year. But imagine being able to do it every day if you wanted to. You can put in new configurations, new policies, and then test it right away and ensure that it's exactly what you want and what you need. So that brings us to number 5, the last must-have, which is security and encryption. We really pay attention to privacy. So rather than other solutions simply taking raw files and sending them to the cloud, we use military-grade double-blind encryption. So encryption locally, in transit, and at rest. It's really the only way to ensure that data is completely secure. So a quick recap of those 5 must-haves that we just looked at. Avoid reserved infrastructure, avoid hardware-heavy solutions, design it end-to-end, unlimited testing, and then security and encryption. So one last section here, and then I'll turn it over to the Q&A, so make sure to get your questions in. So the last note is on infrascale pricing. So I did mention the very beginning when we looked at barriers to adoption, the first barrier to adoption was the misperceived cost of these solutions. So let's take a look at a competitive comparison on pricing and really look at the breakthrough pricing that infrascale offers. This is an apples-to-apples comparison. So it's the cost of a 10 terabyte appliance and then 3 years of cloud. We compared Barracuda, Unitrends, Datto, and infrascale here. And what we found is that with infrascale, you save up to 70% in comparison to some other competitors. And this is because of all of the information that we just looked at, right? So we're avoiding those reserved infrastructure, hardware-heavy solutions. We've designed it end-to-end. We've offered unlimited testing, and we've built in security encryption. So we're able to really see another, as I'm switching the slides here, we're able to see, there we go, another competitive comparison here, taking a look at not only is it affordable, but does it offer those items that we just looked at. So we looked at the top 5 must-haves. Now, let's take a look at how everyone stacks up in comparison. So what you can see here, we're looking at cloud spillover, complete coverage, push-button failover, encryption security, and especially recovery time, because you need that RTO to be at a certain level. So, of course, if you're looking at all of these competitors, they really just don't stack up the way that infrascale does. And we're happy to share all this competitive info with you as well, these competitive analysis. But with that all in mind, we want to make sure that we mitigate the pain that any business feels in an outage. Our aim, our goal, our mission is to eradicate downtime and data loss. So what I'd like to offer all of you for joining us today is on-demand failover free for 60 days to test it out for yourself. You can use the question tool and just type in 60 days free if you want to take advantage of that offer. And with that in mind, I do have one last poll that I want to open for you, and I'll also pass it over to Aaron Jordan. He's on the line here. He's our senior sales engineer, and he's here to answer any technical questions that you may have. So I'm going to pull up this last poll, and then I'll pass it over to Aaron for the Q&A.
Thank you for that, Carla. So guys, yeah, I just wanted to encourage you to ask questions over in that questions tab. I'll answer them as they come up. And then hopefully, you know, you guys find something that is relevant to you, and then I can get that answered for you. So as soon as you put the questions in the questions tab, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yeah, we've got a quiet group today. We would love to hear any questions that you might have had on the presentation, or any feedback that you have on the presentation as well. We're happy to hear it. Were there any topics that we did not cover that you wanted to hear? Type that into the question tool, and we'd love to address it now. I also launched that last poll. So this last poll that I brought up, would you like to learn more about ransomware or about BDR from infrascale? So A, yes, I'd like to learn more about infrascale and about failover DRaaS, disaster recovery as a service. B, yes, some educational BDR info would be really helpful. Or C, no, not yet, but maybe later. Just here learning today, just getting some information and getting some more education. Any questions or anything that did not come up today that you wanted to hear? Are you left wondering anything that we didn't cover?
Seems like a pretty private group, a little quiet.
Yeah, well, I'll take that as a good thing. It looks like we covered a lot of material today. I did try to be cognizant of your time, and I wanted to make sure we covered everything that we needed to get to, you know, within this hour period of time. So thank you guys so much for joining us. It looks like a couple of quick questions coming through. One on we're an InfraScale partner, we need some additional pricing, which is not a problem. I will have your account manager reach out to you with some more detailed pricing specific to your business. Let's see, we also know this was very useful. Thank you very much. So some comments coming through, which is great. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. So Aaron, thanks for being here, even though we didn't have any technical questions come through today. I appreciate your time, and everyone on the line, look forward to working with you in the future. So have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.